The following segment is brought to you in partnership with our friends over at Future 42. Turn your frustration into action at future42.org. I'm proud to be an ambassador for Future 42, and in fact, I'm going to be up in Bellingham later this week for a Future 42 event, so I look forward to that. We have talked on the show before about one of the reasons why you're seeing an increase in gas prices in Washington state, and this should have come as no surprise, because when Washington state passed a carbon tax, all the free market people and folks were warning, like, this is going to raise the cost of gas. Of course it is. Of course this is going to be passed on to consumers. And the state of Washington was like, well, no, it won't. It's going to have just a tiny little impact, if at all. And they were totally gaslighting people because it was like, that just doesn't make any sense in the world. And then, of course, once January 1st hit, we saw the price of gas start to go up. And still it seemed like the state was in denial, either in denial over it or intentionally lying to people and misleading people, which, let me just say this, even if you support the carbon tax, okay, even if you think the carbon tax is a great idea, environmentally, etc., I think it's still bothersome that the state won't just own the consequences of it for people's pocketbooks. You know, if Jay Inslee thought carbon tax is important enough where I don't mind Washingtonians paying more for gas, and if he just said that from the beginning, just acknowledged it, I would have a lot more respect for that than them saying, we believe in the carbon tax and no, it's not going to raise the price of gas, when everyone knows it is, and it currently is, raising the price of gas. But the gaslighting and the secrecy, it goes even a step further. Our friend Todd Myers over at the Washington Policy Center, who has been on with us to talk about this very issue, he said, and he had this article, the headline, "Ecology quietly scrubs the gas price impacts of CO2 tax" from their webpage. And he noticed that in a passage where they had been downplaying what the impact of the carbon tax would be, they've actually quietly changed the language in a way that people might not notice, but in a way that has a substantially different meaning. So I just want to compare the before and after that Todd Myers noticed, and bless his heart for noticing these things. At least somebody's watching it. So this is the passage before on the Ecology website. Ecology also analyzed potential effects of Washington's other major greenhouse gas policy, the Climate Commitment Act, accounting for the impacts of the Clean Fuel Standard. We found the potential impact on gas prices is expected to remain low, about 1 to 3% in 2023. So again, previously they were saying impact on gas prices maybe between 1 to 3% in 2023. Now, listen to what they changed it to, because it might not seem like a big deal, but it actually is. They said, we also analyzed potential effects of Washington's other major greenhouse gas policy, the Climate Commitment Act, accounting for the impacts of the Clean Fuel Standard. As businesses adapt to the new policy, we expect the overall economic impact of the Cap and Invest program to be 1 to 3%. Now let that sink in for a minute. Previously, they made it sound like the impact to gas prices would be 1 to 3%, which is negligible. But now they are saying the overall economic impact is 1 to 3%, which, if you're talking about 1 to 3% of the economy, that's very significant, and it's much different than 1 to 3% impact on gas prices. So again, I go back to this, even if you support the carbon tax, we can't support the government gaslighting us, lying to us, manipulating us, especially when it comes to our pocketbook. It just shows such a disregard for the money you work hard for. It shows a disregard for families who really do have to budget in what they're going to be able to afford for gas to get to work, to bring their kids to school. And it just reminds me that the people who are pushing these policies, they've never been in a position where they stood at a gas pump and had to decide, how much money can I put in? Can I afford to put $5 or $10 in? Or do I just have to put a gallon of gas in? So I would just encourage, especially people who support the carbon tax, to really push the government to be honest about what the impacts are, to be honest about what the impacts are going to be to people's pocketbooks, and to own it, and to make the case for why those impacts justify, why the impacts that it's going to have for people financially, why the policy is still justifiable. And I don't think that's too much to ask of the government. That segment was brought to you in partnership with our friends over at Future 42. Turn your frustration into action at future42.org and make sure to sign up for their newsletter.